Thanks for coming today. It's our second episode of this particular series with Expensify. So QuickBooks Online Feature Spotlight. And thanks for coming to all of them that we've been having, but we're real lucky. Kevin Sullivan from Expensify, I'm going to bring him on in a sec, and I got together. We're thinking we could do these, monthly for a while and on different, maybe related topics to expenses and Expensify and integration. There was some questions from the last one about more the reconciliation in the bank feed in QBO. So that's what we're going to look at later on today, among kind of what we covered in the first session as well. But so expense tracking in QBO and then Expensify. So here I am, just quick introduction, longtime product specialist with Intuit, Pro Advisors, pretty much focused solely on QBO, but I still work with QuickBooks Accountant Edition, Enterprise, not much point of sale anymore, but so some desktop. I install it every year like you probably do as well. Been with Intuit since 04. Stacy Kildall and I still do the QBO show. You can find out more about that at radiofreeqb.com. And in this deck as well, you can download the matrix, which differentiates about 130-ish different feature sets across the QuickBooks ecosystem. So Pro, Premier, Enterprise, the Accountant Editions, QBO, Essentials, and Plus. I don't do much with Simple Start. You probably don't either. And then Self-Employed's out there as well. But I know Expensify works with QBO, and I think with desktop as well. I'll let Kevin confirm, but that's me. And then here's Kevin. Kevin, if you want to unmute yourself, introduce yourself quickly, and then I'll dive into product.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Woody. Hey, everyone. My name is Kevin Sullivan. I work here at Expensify in San Francisco, California. So super excited to join you again for round 2 of Expensify with this Spotlight experience. So I work specifically on our launch team, which essentially is just in charge of actually onboarding new business onto Expensify. So given that we have around 18,000 companies using both QuickBooks Online and Expensify, hundreds of those have been using QuickBooks, so plenty of experience there. And with our recent partnership with QBOA, and through that platform, which we'll get into shortly, I manage that initial experience as well. So very excited to be here today to kind of walk you through Expensify. As Woody said, we'd be more than willing to continue to do so. So any feedback or things that you'd like to touch on more detail, please just let me know. Thanks, Woody.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Kevin. And yeah, you guys will be seeing, when he sends over some receipts he took pictures of yesterday, and I have some bank feeds from a couple days ago that will match it. So we're looking for that kind of stuff too. Later on, what I'm going to cover, and so Kevin will be back on in 20-ish minutes, 18 minutes. So this is what I'm going to cover in QBO Plus at a pretty high level, just kind of assuming that, we all kind of know how to do expense-type transactions and what it all entails inside of QuickBooks Online. But I want to just go over a few of the key settings that aren't turned on by default. The expense-related transaction type, so non-posting versus posting. The detail type at the account level, because sometimes you're going to be merging accounts. We'll look at two-sided items on the product service. And this is all we'll just touch on it, just so you know it's there, right? And why I really like QBO Plus as far as a SKU level for most of our clients, right? Double-sided items being one advantage, even though Expensify will connect to all, like Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus, and I think desktop as well. The drawer, we're going to do a payables workflow, pass-through time expense, related reports, and then I'm going to try to dive into the mobile app real quick. I'll wait on the bank feeds after, and I'll hand it over to Kevin after the mobile app, and then I'll be taking the presentation back over to go into my Amex account in the banking credit card window and see how it matched. Fair enough? But the deck itself, download, because there's other links to other webinars, and then also download the PDF that Kevin uploaded to give you more information in detail about Expensify specifically. So posting versus non-posting transactions, this slide is great. Obviously, there's 2 non-posting transactions, meaning they don't hit an account yet till you go on a posting transaction. So purchase order and then billable expenses, me passing through. And obviously, those are going to all touch on purchasing and expenses, so might as well include them in. Purchase orders are only at the plus level, as well as being able to tag a customer to an expense and then pass it through to an invoice, also need QBO Plus. And I already mentioned double-sided items. You probably already know that Plus is required for class tracking. So again, the QBO SKU level, I keep saying SKU, but I mean the offering of QuickBooks Online that I find most akin to QuickBooks Pro on the desktop that you're probably used to, is going to be plus, right, for those things. Now, posting, of course, an expense, and we'll use an expense for a cash expense or a credit card, because there's, as you know, there's no banking menu in QBO, and there's no enter credit card charge, right? So you're doing a credit card expense. You're using the expense form, and where you do them from within QBO. So expense check, bill payment, vendor credit, credit card credit. So that knocks out, the expense posting versus non-posting transactions. You probably already knew, but I just want to make sure we're aligned. Now, some key settings. You go into the gear icon because that's where operational things are. Accountant settings is like edit preferences. And there's one expenses tab in the settings, right over here. Usually the fourth one down, unless it's under wholesale billing, it'll be the third one down, right? Because under wholesale billing, we remove the billing and subscription tab, right? Because that's all being handled by the QBOA and in your account area and by the firm. So here it is, and you need plus for this. Like Essentials and Simple Start have just a couple options, and certainly not purchase orders. But that's where you turn purchase orders on if you are going to be sending them to vendors, and then you can move them onto a bill, a check, credit card expense. But for bills and expenses, here's where I mean about the two-sided items, although we'll look at the items list in a second after the chart of accounts. Show items table on expense and purchase forms, right? That essentially gives me the ability, if you're used to desktop, you're on a check and you see an expenses tab and an items tab right next to each other, right? In the target area of the check, if you can put that in your mind. I know you've seen it thousands of times. Same with me. It's very similar. It's going to put an account details tab and an items details tab on like a bill, a check, etc. So that I can tag items or just purchase them, non-inventory, inventory, whatever. But then there's a track expenses and items by customer. Right, so I have the ability to then tag a customer to it for a P&L by, profitability by item, or just to show the COGS or expense that a customer causes me as well as the revenue, to see the net income or the profitability of the project, the customer, or the sub-customer, right? Think quote-unquote job, right? And then if you want to make it billable, now what's billable? Passing it through to an invoice. And you can even automate that in QBO. The markup we do here, but I'm going to show that one quickly. But I just want you to know these three options are not in Essentials or Simple Start. So plus you need for that, for any kind of service-based industry client, typically you're going to have two-sided items and you're going to do some billable passing things through to an invoice. And then of course you have purchase orders there. Yes, you can have 3 custom fields at the top part of the purchase order form. I mention that because there's very little custom field or fields in general in QBO, as you know. They're not at the customer level, they're vendor level, they're not at the item level. They are on sales forms like an estimate, invoice, and sales receipt. So you could do like sales rep reporting, as a workaround for that and stuff. But custom fields are helpful on the purchase side as well, but you're only going to see it at the purchase order. Right? Now, advanced real quick. If you are doing the pass-through time expense and you want to set up some global setting, that QBO will automatically create invoices at your particular interval based on any unbilled activity. Anywhere where I tagged an expense, cost of goods sold, purchase of an item to a customer on the expense side, so it's relatable, we got to talk about it, I can then have QBO automatically create invoices for it. Now, I just want to show you that setting because you're probably not going to turn it on for all your clients. It's probably rare that you turn it on. But because, you want control of what goes on the invoice, that's unbilled. So anyway, there is a global setting for that in the Advanced tab. Not much else that would impact expense tracking in the Advanced tab, except for if you're doing class or location tracking, right? So if you do class tracking in desktop, there it is in QBO plus, and you need plus for that in location. Location, you can have 1 per transaction. In class, you can do multiple lines, right? There is no viable balance sheet by class report. There's a balance sheet by location. And then, of course, the P&L can be divvied up by class or location. So that no issues with that there. Okay, gone through some of the key settings from expense related. Let's quickly go to our products and services list. Just wanted to touch on, because you're going to be having items hitting these expense accounts. We'll look at the chart of accounts next. But let me just show you under accounting consulting, you might have clients that need a 2-sided item. Particularly if you're doing any like job costing or you have an estimate, right? That's item-based. Phases of the job, you're going to use items. You're going to use products and services. You're going to use service items. You can make them 2-sided. I have the sales info hitting revenue, and then on the expense side, related to this webinar, purchase info, right? Cost and my cost of goods sold account. or expense. Typically cost of goods sold is what I'm doing. So that's two-sided items because I can then use it on a form, which I'm about to do, right? Then we'll go over the payables workflow, et cetera. But first, I'd be amiss if I didn't go to the chart of accounts, because you have your expense type chart of accounts, right? The options are pretty similar to desktop when you're creating a new account and you choose expense. I wanted to mention two differences though, that are worth noting. This detail type field, you don't have that in desktop because you already know what the detail type would be. I mean, it's just what you're naming the account. This is advertising expense or something, right? But we created these detail types. They've been in there since the beginning of QBO, just to help, your clients, end users who weren't really working with an account maybe at the time, to know what account it's going to be, what type of expense, what type of cost of goods sold, right? So if I have a utility, it's going to say utility, and then I can have it be internet or phone or something like that, right? So, but the key thing to know is detail type only comes into play when you're creating the chart of account, when you're importing from Excel, hopefully, and if you're coming from desktop, we automatically figure it out for you during the conversion tool, right? So you don't have to really think about it, converting from Pro to QBO. So really only importing from Excel or CSV, as well as when you're merging accounts. Like, because you'll do that, right? You'll see a couple extra expense accounts. I might even have them on here. Let me see if I can change the list of the chart of accounts, and I might have like, a couple expenses that mean the same thing or something. Travel, taxi. Anyway, they're both travel detail type. In order to merge these two, like I would drill in, edit the taxi account, change it to travel, then it'll give me the pop-up, right? This one already exists. You want to merge it. You've seen that pop-up already. And I know you've seen it in desktop. But the difference is that in order to merge them, the accounts need to be the same detail type, okay? Just as a tip, in case you're ever merging accounts, right? So we got the accounts, your items or your products and services, if you will, quote unquote, the pawns of desktop or QBO, in this case QBO, are linked to those accounts. So that's a chart of accounts there, and just merging in detail type, I think it's important to note. Now, if I'm on an expense form, let's knock that out, then we'll look at payables, look at the drawer, pass through. I'm going to try to do it all in one to make sure that Kevin gets some time here. So I'm on the expense form. I would use it for a credit card expense, like there's my MX2304 account. That's what we're going to be using. And let's say I'm paying, buying some items. Again, account or item. That checkbox, put the items tab or item details here. So I could do, charitable donations, $100, and I could also purchase some items that I'm, non-inventory parts, if you will, that I'm bringing out onto a, a job I'm doing or something like that. We bought 4 of those. And some of those settings, if you look over in this in the target area of this credit card expense. Why credit card expense? Because I'm choosing credit card, it's my Amex, right? But I'm using the expense form, right? And there are the payment methods, cash, et cetera, right? You're going to use a check for a check, bill's a bill. Okay. But I can tag a customer project for this, a particular project, and make it billable if I want to pass it through. If I just want it for profit and loss buy, uncheck it, right? If I want it billable, then QBO is going to be assuming, even though I don't have that global setting set, or I have no recurring invoice with the same setting to include unbilled activity. We have that too in recurring templates. When I go create the invoice, you'll see it head over in the drawer. So we'll look at that too. So credit card expense, that's what I'm doing there to show kind of the pass-through of it. If I go to an invoice, real quick, and I choose that particular job, you'll see a drawer open up, right? And sorry if the GoToWebinar is kind of slowing up my screen, but I'm hoping you guys are seeing it okay still. But I have the billable expense, right, that we just created, and I can add it to the invoice, right? Or I have a delayed charge or time or something like that. But either way, that's how you pass it through, right? One way to do it. You can make it automated or you can just do it. Remember that drawer. Pretty important, but also important on the payable side when your client has a bill and they go write a check, right? They're going to duplicate the expense. So we'll look at that too because the drawer is really important there. So let me go ahead and click Save and Close. And now let's look at payables, right? Because that obviously is on the payable side as well. I have a bill, right? And you go pay bills. Pretty simple on that side. Let me just do one for Jeff's here. Jeff's janitorial for the account. This is repairs, maintenance, we'll say $500, right? Got a bill, can then go pay it. And if you were to look, I always show this tip. I won't show the report just in the essence of time, but if you go to the More tab where you can delete, void things, see the audit history, Transaction Journal is your Control Y report. Behind any transaction, this would show what was debited and credited by this transactional event. The bill's obviously going to credit AP and debit, my COGS account or expense. I think it was repairs, maintenance expense or whatever. Okay? And of course, you can go make payment there. I can do + pay bills, which would be if I wanted to go pay multiple bills per vendor or do some filtering, right? Pay bills, do all that from there, as well as I can do all this too from the Expenses tab. If I click on Expenses, this is my vendor list. If I go back to Expenses, there is, new transaction. I can add bill, expense, check, purchase order, all from there as well. Okay, print checks from here under the +. I'm just assuming kind of already all this stuff already, but the expense transactions like a list report, very helpful in filtering if you're not like paying multiple bills or you're just focused on one vendor. All right, so there's that as well. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention, here's that low-hanging fruit of mistakes. I know I have a bill from Jeff's Janitorial, so I want to go pay it. I'm going to go write a check. Seems reasonable to me. Oh, second here. Right? The drawer is going to save you a lot, right? It's going to remind me that I have 2 open bills. So instead of doing a check, which would duplicate the $700, right? Because this is already debited the cost of goods sold account or expense. We want to train our clients to, when you click Add All, it changes it from check to bill payment check. That's what it did. Brought the bill over, changed it from check number 2155 to bill payment number 2155. So good low-hanging fruit of mistakes that clients will make when they're trying to write a check, but they have open bills. So consider that as well. Now, related reporting. We have several different reports. Your view might have changed like mine. The report center, if you will, is a little new. I've been favoriting reports that I like, just starring them so I can keep them all in the top section. So unpaid bills would be one good report. If I go down to who I owe, this would be obviously contractor or vendor balance, unpaid bills down here, bill payment list, accounts payable as well. And then also under expenses and vendors, we have a lot here. Check detail, expense by vendor summary. We even added a new custom summary report, if that's helpful, to build kind of a summary report from scratch. Transaction list by vendor, also very helpful. All right. I'm going to go into bank feeds later on after Kevin takes over, but first, I did want to show what you can do on the mobile app. So I'm going to fire that up right now. Right now you're looking at hopefully you're still seeing it, the actual QuickBooks app on the phone, the mobile app, if you will. This is different from the QBO app for Windows or QBO app for Mac. And that you can install on the computers themselves, a Mac or Windows laptop or PC. And obviously different from being in the browser. That's another way to do it on the phone, is going in natively to Safari or Firefox or Chrome, but then you're pinching and using your fingers a lot because it's not really optimized at the screen. Like Expensify is really optimized on the mobile app. That's pretty sweet. So Kevin will show that probably. But this is what I have available. From transaction entry, we see just expense. It's not a bill. Yes, it could be a check. I'll show you that when you go to the expense, but just those are the transaction types supported on the phone app itself. So obviously a lot more on the customer side. But you bank, deposit, payment, and then expense. And then I have products and services list, chart of accounts, like obviously expenses, right? Bank feeds, which you can do, and a P&L and balance sheet. Okay. So if you do an expense, I just wanted to mention that you can take a picture, and choose existing or what have you, a receipt you might have or something that you wanted to take, if you will. You can do that, a quick picture. I'll just take the pic of the fam. We'll use that, pretend that's my receipt. You can put in the amount, $50. I can do credit. It's going to default to my Amex account. Who did we pay, right? Gas station. It already defaults to gas and oil account, but I can also if it was like Lowe's or Home Depot and I would need to tag a customer, I can tag a customer and make it billable. I can do class and location tracking on the app as well and put in notes, right, and add the split down here. So in a memo. So it's an expense transaction. When I click save, it's going to go to QBO with the attachment, right? So well, it's saving right now, and there I have it. So, I mean, I find that with clients, they have the phone, and it's exciting to show them the QBO app because they're going to be doing some of that stuff. And if you look in the search field, here's my expense, right, with the receipt attached down below, right? There's a pic of the fam up on the back of Mount Lemon or whatever the pic is. Yeah, there you go. See, me and the kids. So there is that too as well, right? And similarly, it treats the phone app kind of like a third party, just like Expensify would send the transactions over, which we'll see. So I'll be coming in here later on. I'm going to hand it over to Kevin now, and then he's going to go through his portion of the demo. We're going to come back, and you're going to be able to see like transactions and how they come over specifically from Expensify matched, you know. So really cool. So Kevin, I'm going to change you presenter, and then I will mute myself and handle the Q&A. If I see something like thematic, I'll ask you, and then let me know when you want me to take over and show the reconcile on this side, you know.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Woody. Perfect. All right, so we should be all set. Thanks again, Woody, for that start. Always learn something new as you're presenting here within the QBO side of things. So apologies for anyone who joined our last session, but I do want to get everyone caught up to speed, provide a little background on Expensify, who we are as a company, how we work with QuickBooks Online. The next thing that I'll cover is actually the mobile application. So as you onboard clients onto Expensify, they'll be using our mobile app to snap photos of receipts on the go and really take advantage of our functionality. Now, the last thing that I'm going to touch on is actually setup on the back end of Expensify from the administrative perspective. So as an accountant, if you're setting up clients, you'll be spending a lot of time in what we call a policy, which I'll get into in a bit. And finally, reviewing an expense, approving, exporting into QBO, and then Woody will take it from there to actually show that auto match, which is a fantastic feature with QuickBooks Online that we have in place. So again, as promised, a little background on Expensify. We were actually founded in 2008 here in San Francisco, where I am based, with a tagline that, quite frankly, anyone can get behind, and that's expense reports that don't suck. Now, since then, we have seen a lot of success with a huge spectrum of customers, right? So we're talking sole proprietors, international businesses, top 100 accounting firms, all the way down to one-stop shop bookkeepers. And really how we've seen that success is twofold. The first of which is focusing on the end user and making it as easy as possible on them, whether that's a client, an employee, really anyone who has to actually track expenses. And that starts with our patented Smart Scan in our mobile application. So that whenever you have a hard copy receipt, a client or employee can simply snap a photo or forward any online or digital receipt to receipts@expensify.com. Now from there, our technology is actually going to pick up on the merchant name, the amount, and the date automatically, and essentially create an expense for that user. Now on the right-hand side is our receipt integration. So ideally what we're looking to do is actually have your clients, as well as yourself, using and thinking about Expensify as little as possible. While that does sound ironic, we're trying to make sure that you can focus on your actual job. So we partnered with different integrations such as Uber, Lyft, Hotel Tonight. Uber is a great example where as you get in and out of these car rides, if you're on a trip, we'll actually pick that up from your business profile, and we're creating that Uber receipt in your account automatically. So no printing out, no forwarding, snapping a photo. That's really where we're looking to progress, and that is currently live within our product as well. Now the second part of that success is really what's important to most accountants and admins, and that's the automation that we put in place at each step of what can typically be a very tedious and manual process. So this conveyor belt really just helps you visualize the fully automated expense process. From the second someone adds a receipt via that Smart Scan or forwarding, we're going to again pick up the merchant name, the amount, and the dates, and then we're going to collect those receipts in what we call scheduled submit. So anything that's tied to a corporate credit card, which we'll get into a bit, whether that's Amex, Visa, or MasterCard, will auto-match the receipt with the transaction. Anything that's out of pocket will be marked as reimbursable. And then via our scheduled submit feature, you as an accountant can tell us how often you'd like to collect a respective client's receipts. So if that needs to be done on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, you just tell us how often. We'll actually push those over for review so that you don't have to bother your client to get these in at a certain time or close the month out properly. Now, within our real-time audit in that second piece there, Expensify is actually going to use the different rules and parameters for either your client or yourself that you want to put in place on the back end. So that anything that's unusual based on your company's standards, we're going to flag that and highlight that for your approvers. That way you don't have to look at every single receipt to make sure everything matches properly. From there, it can be taken through an approval workflow, which can be as simple as going right to QuickBooks Online or having multiple levels of review. It's totally up to you. And finally, we can process the out-of-pocket for reimbursement via ACH and export this all into QuickBooks Online directly. So that brings me to the next point of actually how we work with QuickBooks Online, and we'll be getting into this a bit more in detail as well. So SmartScan, again, we can skip over that since I've touched on it already. Once you snap the photo of the receipt, you're actually, as a client or end user, able to code the expense using information that we pull directly from QuickBooks Online. So this isn't just a one-way sync. We're actually going to pull your coding information right from that client's QBO so that a client can select from a GL account, customer, class, item, or location, and all of those lists can be tailored as well. Now that review process will remain the same, and then once it is approved, we're going to export that information into QuickBooks Online. So you'll see we have plenty of different options here. For the out-of-pocket or reimbursable expenses, we can create checks, vendor bills, or journal entries. And then for the corporate card charges, which we will be really covering in more detail, we can have them go in as credit cards, debit cards, or vendor bills. So this is really our best integration, something we're very proud of with, again, around 18,000 companies and constantly growing using that mutual connection.
Hey, Kevin?
Yep.
Quick question. Will Expensify also sync the numbers associated with the chart of account, so like the chart of account numbers when they have them turned on?
Yeah, good question. It certainly will. And also you can actually adjust those names. So sometimes I know they're not so client or user friendly. So you can actually adjust, let's say, Project LCYX to be, Project A, for example, and that will still map effectively back.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So last thing to touch on with the product, then I'm going to go into the QBOA partnership, which is very exciting, is our concierge feature. So concierge is actually our AI chatbot. It's going to use your different rules and parameters to not only set up a nice and tidy checklist for you and your clients, but also notify your clients whenever they're deviating from the different rules or expectations that you have of them. So on the left-hand side, our inbox is actually going to bring to your attention any outstanding tasks within Expensify. So this is in particular is interesting to accountants because as you have multiple clients set up within Expensify, multiple things to take care of, we don't want you to be searching around to make sure that everything's checking out. So you check your inbox, make sure that's at 0, everything's good to go. The second you have something that you need to review or export, reimburse, that's all going to be brought to your attention in the inbox. Now concierge on the right-hand side is a bit more interactive so that if I add a receipt and I'm missing certain information, I'm going to get a push notification straight away that's going to allow me to swipe right into that expense and make the fix. So before getting into the mobile application, I did want to touch on QBO and Expensify and the partnership that we have with them right now. It is very, very exciting for all pro advisors and those using that platform. So a couple of big advantages is the seamless onboarding experience that we do have through QBOA. So you'll actually be able to provision clients right from the QuickBooks Online accountant platform that will connect right to their QuickBooks Online. It will mark you for our accountants program. And then you'll also get some live training sessions and info directly from me to make sure that you set up effectively. Now, the exclusive discount is likely what you are all most excited about. And that's the fact that we actually do 20% off our typical price, but we take that a lot further in that there is no commitment. So typically we charge on an annual subscription, locking you in for a certain amount of seats each month. Now through QBOA, we're really rewarding those users. There is 0 commitment, so it's fully just on a month-to-month basis. We charge you when you use it. And the last thing is it's nice and easy to manage billing because it's actually purchased right through QBOA. It'll show up on that bill, and then you can bill back to your clients accordingly. So I'm just going to switch screens in just a second here, so bear with me. And I'm going to jump into the mobile application just to give you a taste of what that looks like from the end user perspective once you have fully set up a client. So you should be seeing my mobile application. Woody, if you want to give me the go-ahead that it's kind of sliding back and forth.
It is a little blurry, but that might just be my screen. But I can see it for sure, the concierge.
Okay, cool. Not sure about the blur part, but this is my actual phone, so this isn't some sort of screen share here. But this is the mobile application, which is really the bread and butter of Expensify, as Woody alluded to earlier. So it's available on both iOS and Android app stores. It is absolutely free for download, so you can always give it a try if you'd like. And the first thing you're going to be brought to as any user is the inbox. So again, if you have anything that you need to take care of, and it looks like I do, it's going to be brought to your attention here, so you don't have to go digging for that. So if I were to have to fix this violation, you guessed it, I would click the giant Fix Violation button, which would actually take me directly to the receipt that is in violation. Now, we're also going to tell your employees exactly what is wrong there. So it looks like I'm exceeding a certain limit for the particular GL account that I selected here. Now, the Smart Scan that I had mentioned multiple times here can actually be accessed in the bottom right-hand corner by clicking that camera icon. So what that allows me to do is right at the point of sale, I can actually snap a photo of the hard copy receipt. Smart Scan is going to kick in there, take a couple minutes really because we're focused on accuracy, to pick up the merchant name, the amount, and the dates. And then as a client or end user, I can actually code the expense. So this category dropdown will actually be a list of the client's GL accounts pulled directly from QuickBooks Online. So let's say I'm trying to find that meals account. I can always add a comment in this open text field if necessary. And then any extra level of coding, whether that be a class, item, location, customer even, that can be made available as a drop-down menu as well. So every single client will have their own settings that you can configure on the back end. Once I hit save, Smart Scan will continue to kick in. I can literally put my phone away, and if anything is wrong, I'll get a push notification straight away from Concierge. So that's really the best way and the only way that I use Expensify as an end user. If you have any clients that are also tracking mileage and doing so manually, we can solve that problem straight away as well. So the plus symbol in the top right-hand corner will actually activate this distance drop down here. And we have a couple options as far as features go, but the main one I would like to touch on is that GPS feature. So with our GPS, you can actually hit start right from your mobile application when you get in your car, hit stop when you finish. We'll actually track where that person traveled, how many miles, create the actual image of a map for where they went, and then use the IRS rate to create that total amount owed. So mileage can be totally tracked right from the mobile app as well. And if anyone ever forgets to use that GPS feature, they can always manually enter in that info too. Now, the inbox is really where all the magic happens from the mobile application. So this is where I add my receipts. I can track my mileage and stay up to date on expenses. As an accountant, if you're more comfortable on mobile, you can even review and approve expenses right from the mobile app too. So this is a fantastic feature of the inbox. I don't go too much further, but if we go to the sliding menu or select the top left-hand corner, you'll see we've got it broken down nicely into expenses, reports, and trips, and then, of course, some of your different settings here. So the Expenses tab is going to have all the different receipts that I've added into Expensify. So I can click into this one from Starbucks, for example, this morning. I'm a creature of habit, and there's one right next door, so you saw a lot of Starbucks receipts. You'll see that we actually pulled in the merchant name, the amount, and the date. Those three values were completely automated just with the snap. I can change any of this information if necessary. Let's say make it free lunch. And then if I ever need to split an expense, I can do this as either a accountant or a client here. So what I can do is actually split a single receipt and then allocate those to different GL accounts, different customers, projects, and that can all be done right from the phone. So then the reports tab, as I mentioned, we actually schedule submissions. So we create these reports and push them along for approval. Not too much to touch on here. It's just going to have all of the receipts for each client, and then ultimately you tell us how often you want to collect those receipts. Now the last thing to touch on, sorry, flying through here, is the trips tab. So the trips tab is just a great example of when to forward a receipt to receipts@expensify.com. So when you actually get a United itinerary, let's say, all you have to do is forward that to receipts@expensify. We'll bring in the entire itinerary as the receipt image. We'll read for the merchant name, amount, and date, and even provide real-time updates for your clients on their flights. So one last thing in the mobile application that I do want to cover is in the settings tab, and that is our Copilot access feature, which is that first tab. So for a lot of accountants, oftentimes you are managing your client's expenses. They add the receipts and you really take it from there. So in the case where you still need access to their specific account, instead of just having it submitted to you, you can actually have Copilot access. So right from your central accountant or admin account, you'll be able to swing into another user and then act as a different individual within Expensify. So then from there, you can manage this other person's expenses very easily. So that's a great feature for accountants in the case where the CEO of a company or a sole proprietor just needs a little bit more guidance and you need to jump into their account and make that save, which probably happens fairly often with these applications.
So Kevin, I got one question.
Yeah,
if that's okay. On the mobile app too, when you're scanning the receipts, if it's like a multi-page receipt, does that create separate charges, or how does that go over to how is multi-page receipts handled?
Yeah, that's a great question. So ideally, you would actually just take the larger photo of multiple receipts. It might be tougher for us to read, but once it gets below a certain confidence level, we do have a human component to back that up. Really, all we need on the Expensify side is the merchant name, the amount, and the dates to properly read that receipt.
Thanks.
Yep. So actually, Woody, that does cover the mobile application. I want to spend a little bit more time on the web this time around. So are there any other questions on the mobile app, or should I just continue on?
No, there was some questions on the main differences between the phone app for QBO and Expensify, and I was saying, well, mileage tracking, trips, the automatic transaction entry when you get out of the Uber car. Like you guys have that partnerships with those travel vendors, right? So it's more automated. I was trying to think of other things, approval stages, which QBO wouldn't have either. I'm just trying to think of like, hey, I'm using the QBO app on the phone, but Expensify is, obviously more sophisticated. So that was the nature of the question.
Yeah, I would say that's about right. So some of those things that you had mentioned. And then once you're getting into any sort of approvals, right? So if you have a client that has multiple employees, oftentimes the manager might want to review something. Then it goes to you before it goes to QuickBooks Online. We can set that up very easily with an Expensify. So once you've got something that you're not just, quickly entering one-off expenses, that's really when we come into play, where someone can be on the go, adding in receipts for a month, and then you can quickly just check that out and it goes right to QuickBooks.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, so I'm going to actually make the switch over to the web application, which is where I want to spend a little bit more time today. So the web application is going to look a lot similar to the mobile app, right? We've got the same exact tabs going here: inbox, expenses, reports, and settings. So before I actually get into the inbox, because that is a fantastic feature, I am going to go into the settings tab. Now, let's all imagine that I'm actually in a accountant's admin portal. So this is no longer an end user. We're actually acting as an accountant setting up clients. And that's going to start all within the policy here. So the policy is actually going to be a breakdown of all of your different clients. Now, typically, these are all going to be coming right from QuickBooks Online Accountant. So just to quickly touch on that, if I'm still signed in, okay. Let me just make this fix here. Well, I'll show you in just a bit. But basically, you will actually provision for clients right from QuickBooks Online Accountant. And then each of these policies is going to be a breakdown of each of your clients. So we don't limit that. You can manage them all centrally from one place, which makes that nice and easy, just like QBOA does, actually. So clicking into the QBO Intuit policy here, these tabs are going to be a breakdown of each of the different settings that you configure for each of your respective clients. So everyone's going to have unique requirements and requests. In the Expenses tab, either your client or yourself, if you're going to be enforcing these rules, can set some basic expense rules or expectations, such as how old an expense can be so that anything over, let's say, 30 days actually gets flagged for a violation, maximum line item limits, even when you want to require receipt image. So then you don't have to go digging for this information. We're just going to highlight that for you. Now, the report section is where that scheduled submit feature that I mentioned can be configured. So again, this is going to be huge for setting up clients. Instead of having to pull this information from them or constantly email, we'll actually go ahead and push this forward. So if you as an accountant would like to review things every week, twice a month, monthly, you can actually totally customize that right here. So then in the connection section, this is where we're going to connect with QBO. Now, if you come right from QuickBooks Online Accountant, we're going to do this automatically for you. In literally seconds, once you purchase it from QBOA, we're going to make the connection to your respective client's QuickBooks Online. Taking a look in how we configure that, we have a lot of different options here, as I had mentioned in that first slide. And the Export tab is just determining how we export approved or just sent information into QBO. So for the out-of-pocket expenses, we can create vendor bills, checks, or journal entries. And then for the non-reimbursable, which is what we're going to cover at the end of this, we can have it actually hit the credit card account that you have set up within your client's QuickBooks Online. So Woody and I are going to present that in just a couple minutes here. And then for the coding section, you're actually going to be able to determine what we pull in here. So those different drop-down menus that clients can see, you can actually determine what that looks like on their end, or whether you even need this information in the first place. And just running through the rest of the policy here for one of your clients. The categories is going to have all the different GL accounts that we pull in from Expensify. You'll actually be able to change those names, as I mentioned. And then to make it easier on the client, just turn off those that they don't need to see. So if they only need a couple accounts to choose from, then you can just keep those ones on and make it a lot easier for them. So the last thing to touch on in the policy is the people section. The people section is actually where we will invite your clients to join Expensify. So you can just hit invite right here. If you've got a big list of clients for, let's say, 10 employees, you could import an entire spreadsheet. We'll send those invites, and we do take that one step further. So Expensify offers live training for employees and admins alike. This is multiple times throughout the week. So make sure that you're passing your clients our way. We can actually onboard them and make sure that they're comfortable with the system so that you don't feel that pressure of being the presenter of a brand new product, right? So as you get set up, or if you come from QBOA, you'll get a message directly from me with a step-by-step checklist of really how to effectively set up a client. So that really covers the policy here. That's going to be your clients, right? Policy is just synonymous with clients. It's where all of their back-end settings are going to live. And then the domain control feature is actually where you're going to set up corporate cards for each of your respective clients here. So when I go into the domain control feature and then go to company cards, our company card section is actually where we're going to pull in bank feeds directly. So another great use case for Expensify is if you have any client that has multiple corporate credit cards. Reconciling that can be very, very difficult, very tedious and manual. So what we do is we bring in those transactions on a bank feed. We can assign each card to the actual card holder and even auto-match the receipts to the transactions. That way, when you want to run a quick report or understand where that money is being spent, you can do so very easily and all you have to do is ask of your clients to add receipts into Expensify. Now, before just looking at how this goes into QuickBooks Online, our reconciliation dashboard is also fantastic for accountants that need to close out those months. So what I can do is actually grab a statement period. I know we're pretty early in August here, but if I run a report, it's actually going to break down the total amounts, which should match your statement, the unapproved total, which of course should be a lower number, but I'm on a demo account, and then that which has been accounted for. Right, so then I can actually go into each of the cards, and it's going to show me the specific card holders and the amounts that they still need to get into me on time. So I can either pester them properly or maybe even click into a particular user's expenses. This will give me a nice breakdown of all the expenses that they are yet to submit to me. I can either ping them directly, export this right away, or even add it to a report. So this is great for also creating accruals in the case where you understand that, that last $2,000 is eventually going to come, but for the time being, just not very possible, and you want to close the month out. So the reason that I skipped over the inbox is because I did want to look at the back-end settings and then hand it over to Woody once we actually approve something live. So as an accountant, your inbox is going to be very, very crucial to your success. So you'll notice here that each of your clients is actually going to have its own header, and any next steps you have to take will be segmented by clients. So it looks like I've got a couple reports that I need to approve, one for Mitch right here. I need to approve an employee over here as well. So if I click into Begin Review, our guided review process will first take me to only the receipts that need my attention. So again, when you put those different rules in the back end within our client policy, we're going to actually enforce those rules on the front end, tell your employees when they're in the wrong, and then if they still submit that over, that'll be brought to your attention. So this, for example, is a client where tags or classes are actually required. So this employee actually didn't include that class. In this case, I can either make the quick fix for them, I can even reject the single line item, or oftentimes clients aren't exactly coding in the best manner. So if I need to make that change, then I can easily do that too. So let's say it was Meals Local. So if I want to just update this for the client, then I can quickly do so. Let's say it's Oasis Apartments. So I can save that receipt. Looks like the rest of the report actually checks out. And since these are tied to corporate card transactions, when I approve this and final approve it, it's going to go right to QuickBooks Online. So all I have to do is hit approve. Now from there, it's going to tell me that there's no actual action needed from me anymore. AutoSync is kicking in. This is going to go directly to QuickBooks Online, hit the credit card account, that Amex account that we had mentioned, and my work from there is done. So maybe to hand it over to Woody and take a look at those expenses that we had just exported.
Yeah, totally. Let's do that. And see if when they come in, I show. So let me change presenter back. And thanks for that, Kevin. That worked out great. I really like the fact that I don't know if it's a violation, but what are you setting that allows it to turn red so I know as a manager to go in and fix those accounts or classes, et cetera? Is that a violation policy, or is that just like in the settings? Because that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great question. So that is all in the policy here. So the policy is just where you're going to put the different rules in place, actually invite your clients to join, and then really just...
I might have lost you. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I lost the vocal for a sec.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, I hear you great now.
Cool. Yeah, so actually that all takes place within your client policy. So not only can we accept those expense limits, but if you wanted to even require, let's say, like classes, right? So you notice that when I didn't have a class, it actually flags automatically. You can put all these rules in the back end, and then we'll really coach the client on best practices from there. Anytime they don't really behave on those standards, we're going to notify you as well.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for showing that. Yeah, I'm going to change presenter, and you'll see, yeah, so already there's some matches, right? I hit, before I shared out, I hit the reload, I reloaded the page, right? Because you have to assume in a real life scenario, I might be doing something else. I might not even be in QBO, or I'll go into the client tomorrow. and then I go to the bank credit card window, right, in the Amex account, and then I'll see the 2 records found or the 1 record found. We'll focus on the tender greens and how it came over. Also, you can see them come over just when you left-click in the search field, and I have these expenses right here that came over from Expensify. So if we were just to drill into one right now, just to show you how the transaction itself, I mean, that's the quickest way is to look in that search field or go to the vendor record or the expense window. But when I scroll down, I was noticing yesterday, this one is for Home Depot office supplies, and it tells you Expensify, right? So you know it's coming from Expensify, and there's a link to the transaction, which I'm assuming you could just open another tab, right-click, paste, and go, and you'd see it. As well as I can click on the receipt because it comes in attached, So pretty cool. Again, we're using different receipts for stuff, but, either way, that's killer. So the receipt's attached, linked to Expensify, in the memo field as well, and then the account itself is correctly chosen on the Expensify side. Right? So if I go back in the bank feed, I can see that, for tender greens, here's the match. And it matched to this other expense that was already entered in or came in from the bank feed, really, right? That's how it happened, right? I'm in the feed. So the credit card feed yesterday came in, and then here it is. Expensify created the transaction in QBO. I don't want to duplicate it. That was one of the questions that I got asked just now. I just said, hey, hang on, we're going to show you. This prevents the duplication. There's 2 types of actions with bank feeds in QBO, as you know, right? You got match or add. And this would be considered when you check it off, right, accept. So when you're on QBOA and you see like 150 unaccepted transactions, that means that they're in the for review tab and they have neither been added or matched yet to something already in the register. Add new, match already existing in the register. So Expensify created the transactions in the register for me. We just saw Kevin do it. Let's pretend he's my manager. He approved it, boom. And then the admin or the accountant or whatever can come in and work the feed later on, and it's not going to be duplicated because it's matched based on date, the amount itself, the payee, etc. So pretty cool. So it's not, duplicated, and I think that's what we wanted to show. Same with Home Depot. Now, sometimes it'll show a couple records, 1 record found or 2 record found, depending. I already had something in there for Starbucks and Home Depot. So, yeah, and then there's a Starbucks record too. So,
thanks for that, Woody. And just to step in as well, I think there is a common misconception where the feed will exist within QuickBooks Online, and then there's a lot of concern as an accountant to set up that same feed within Expensify. But the fact is, if you actually just hold off on that month until you have that info from Expensify and not approve the transactions, then we'll go ahead and auto match. So just something to be aware of if you do end up assigning those cards out within Expensify, which I'd absolutely suggest for auditing purposes. And just make sure that you're actually holding off on approving, and then you'll be good to go.
No, that's a great point. Great call out, because we don't want to get it in there or having it be duplicated. So definitely follow Kevin's advice there. And I think, Kevin, what I'm seeing a lot is firms are, though I can do the transaction entry or whatever, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait for Expensify, and I'll wait for the feed, and then, once I have all the ducks in a row, everything prepped, then I'll work on the reconcile itself. So anyway, I'm seeing that a lot. So pretty cool. Thanks for mentioning that. Now, is there anything else you wanted to, I know you were saying in QBOA, let me see if I can, because I'm already in there. Kevin was showing the Expensify app affiliation. That way you won't have to log in the apps section. So the master admin and the full access users are the team members of QBOA. You'll see Expensify is right up top, right? So there's several apps that have a championship jug or whatever it is, 25% off, 20 to 25% off. So you would just drill into Expensify from there, and then gives you the key benefits. You can show more. You look at a video, and then it has essentially everything else that apps.com would, but it's built into QBOA. And then on behalf of my client, I can click Get App Now, and then choose, the client that I'm actually going to integrate it for, and then have the client, like Kevin said, definitely spend some time with Expensify, onboarding, training, things like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. that's saved there. A lot of passwords, a lot of logins, but just to...
No, I hear you. It happens to me all the time. That's
yeah.
that's a daily event for me.
To piggyback off of that as well, when you actually go through that route, we know where you're coming from, right? So you're not just any new business. You're actually an accountant through the QBOA portal. So you'll get a message directly from me. We're going to connect your client's QBO. You'll have a free account internally as well. And we give you a great checklist that's going to break down, the entire client policy. So step-by-step how to get that set up. Employee training, admin training, which can be great for your firm internally as well. So there's a lot of great info when you come from QBOA, so we're very excited for that. Not to mention, it is fully based on active users. So if you have a client that has 5 employees, but none of them use it this month, we don't charge you. And the next month, if 5 of them use it, we charge you $35 at that 20% off rate. So not only is it 20% off, but that lack of a commitment makes it a much greater discount, and that's nowhere else in this market. So very exciting stuff. But other than that, definitely happy to continue this, Woody, and I really do appreciate you having me on today.
No, it's great, and thanks for taking the time out of your day, as well as everyone who attended. Thank you. I know everyone's real busy, so I hope this was helpful. There's 2 questions. Kira asked, will transactions be fed into QBO like a bank feed if a bank is not able to be synced to QBO? Oh, yeah, like a credit union or something. That might be a nice... Also another scenario for Expensify, because you had the credit card feed, right, Kevin? So could that take the place of if I'm unable to connect a bank directly to QBO?
Yeah, that's a good question. So really it just comes down to what is marked as reimbursable and what is marked as non-reimbursable within Expensify, right? So if that corporate card's set up within our system and you tell us to say non-reimbursable expenses go into that Amex credit card account or that credit union account, then we're going to hit that account successfully. So it doesn't have to exist within QuickBooks Online.
Nice. Awesome. Because Expensify is creating the transaction. It's just matching to the feed. So, yeah, totally. Exactly. The nice thing is the people in QBO don't actually have to create the transaction. That's what I like. So Cindy says, I have clients I have to reconcile every day. Can we have the Expensify report sent to us daily?
Yeah, you absolutely can. So that scheduled submit feature we can have on daily. So as soon as I'm adding expenses and receipts, we'll push that over at the end of the night. You'll get an email saying, hey, take a look at this, and that'll also be brought to your attention in your inbox as well.
Cool. Yeah, and those are the questions I had. I'll shoot that out to all. And well, thanks everybody for attending. Again, I'll unshare, and I'll leave it open for a couple minutes if there's other questions, but I'm going to go on mute. But thanks again, Kevin, for today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Woody, and thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate your time.